I think we should get started. I'm sure other people will join us as they can, but I'd like to introduce myself first. I am Lisa Cole Miller. I am the Director of Marketing at iPEC Coaching. Really excited for our guest today. But first, I wanted to mention that if you have any questions, please drop them into the Zoom Q&A or into the Facebook comments. Please don't put them into the chat box. That's really more for the chatter and the accolades but if you have actual questions, we're monitoring the Q&A piece for the questions. So now to introduce our guest today, welcome Carla Romo. She is I've been so excited chatting with her. She's just got such a really cool background. So her philosophy is that the most important relationship you have is with yourself. And it really sets the tone for every relationship you have in your life. She's a nationwide speaker, certified dating relationship coach, and the author of Contagious Love. So I'm just going to turn it over and say, welcome, Carla.
Thank you. I'm super excited to be here.
And along with these workshops and things that you've done for hundreds of people, and an expert speaker and featured in collaboration on Bravo and Milwaukee Bucks, Cosmo, Bumble, Lifetime, and a high-rated iTunes podcast. You've been busy. You've been busy.
I've been very busy, and I love every minute of it. It's awesome. I'm happy.
Very, very cool. So why don't we rewind a bit and talk about what life was like for you before life coaching?
I was living in Los Angeles and I was working in television. So I did casting of TV shows. I was a TV producer at times. And I was just really on that hustle and grind, very much so, to the point where I was burning out. I didn't have very much self-care. And also my relationships were suffering. My intimate relationships were suffering. And I didn't have self-love. I didn't have worth. And it wasn't until that I really stepped into self-love and self-worth that all of these things changed in my life. My career changed, my relationships changed, and I started to really learn to love myself. And that really showed up for me primarily in my intimate relationships, where I learned about boundaries, red flags. Because I loved myself, I knew that I didn't have to depend on anybody else in my relationship to make me happy. I could now fill up my own cup. So those types of things have really helped me. And also, in addition to that, because of my journey of going through, as I coin it as my self-love growth journey, because of that, I was like, you know what? Other people are going through this too. They're struggling along in their intimate relationships. They're struggling along in dating and their breakups. And I was like, I want to be a coach. Literally, it's like, I want to write a book, I want to speak, and I want to be a coach. And so from there, I just was like, you know what? It's time. It's time just to make this change in my life. And so I started the process with iPEC, and the rest is history.
Wow. Wow. That's incredible. And what self-awareness to be able to tap into that misalignment that you were feeling within yourself, and to be able to figure out what actions you needed to take. I'm sure there are a lot of people listening in here that are probably in that stuck modality right now, and curious as to how you overcame that. So talk a little bit about how did coaching get on your radar?
Well, I always had this passion to help others. Like, I always wanted to help others. And I needed to do my own work, my own journey, to be able to realize that, oh, it's coaching that I want to do. Like, that's how I want to help other people. And so I just started to Google like life coaching. What is life coaching? How do I get into this? What are the legit programs? What are the ones that seem maybe not so legit? What is it that I want out of this? And so I actually came across iPEC, and that's what started me into this process of like, okay, this is legit. And then I reached out to other people before I signed up for iPEC. I did my research, who had also iPEC certifications, and I talked with them. They were doing what I wanted to do, not the same niche, which is dating and relationships, but they were doing burnout through career, or they were career coaches. And so I started to talk to them, do my research, and I was like, oh, this is the thing. Like, you can actually start a business, make money out of it, and go full time into coaching.
Wow. That's awesome. That's awesome. So during your research, you talked a little bit about the iPEC certification. Why was getting a certification important to you?
Well, it's funny because I actually get asked all the time if I'm certified. And I didn't know that I would, but for whatever reason, I wanted to find a program that was ICF accredited because that then has standards. There's, a rule of thumb that, okay, like these are what it abides by. And for me, I just was like, you know what, like iPEC, I was drawn to iPEC anyways, just because it's the way it's structured. You have in-person mods and then you have the online thing, and that could work with my schedules while I was balancing out um, working and getting certified at the same time.
So tell me a little bit about, you talked about the in-person, the homework, all of that. Talk to me a little bit about, a lot of people get really connected to their cohort, the in-person side of things. Yes, yes,
Yes. Oh, yes. I love my mods. Yes.
yes. So talk a little bit about the experience of going through the program and what, what epiphanies came for you, or what insights you found out about yourself, or about coaching.
Well, it's just so funny because it's the people that you go through the mods with, you have the 3 mods, each mod you go through the same group of people. And I'm still close. Like I've moved since from Los Angeles to New York, and I just was in LA this past weekend, and I went and stayed with one of my mod friends because literally, like, you just create these bonds and these friendships. In 2 weeks, I'm going to be a guest speaker for another one of the coaches that I met in the mod. I mean, there's just such a support, like literally, personally, beyond personal levels of just career wise, but you make these personal connections, and that, I mean, it was so valuable. Now, of course, I could get into like what I got out of it. You learn the tools of coaching and all that, but I have to say it's such an amazing experience because you really do make such valuable friendships that go beyond just career, but into personal life as well. And then I also got my first paying client out of one of my mods because she knew that I was doing dating and relationship coaching, and she wanted help with her dating life. And so she hired me, and that was my first paying client. So there's just so many aspects that my mods brought me that were very valuable.
Awesome. Awesome. I know that there are many, many other iPEC grads that had a similar experience. And one of the other experiences that I'd like to share is, even beyond your mods, being connected with the iPEC community in general. Like, there's so much support out there that you definitely don't feel alone. This is not this scary foyer into a business world, like it might be in other industries. So that's really cool that you have all those connections.
Yeah,
Um,
it's amazing.
yeah, yeah. So tell me a little bit. I mean, you talked a little bit about how naturally you fell into your niche, but you know, was there an epiphany there? Or how did you really like draw the line in the sand? This is what I'm going to go with.
For me, it was my life-changing experience. So it was breaking free of codependent relationships. It was learning to love myself. It was learning to look out for the red flags, create boundaries in my life that just, I felt drawn. Like it was my purpose in life, and this is my direction and where I'm supposed to go. When I got to iPEC, I was so excited and overwhelmed at all the different niches and possibilities that it actually took me a minute to really decide, okay, is this 100% what I want? And it was. But I had moments of questioning, like, well, what if I just do something more general, or what if I don't? And I always say, go back to your gut. Like, what is your gut telling you? Why did you originally sign up for this? And then connecting back with that for me is what helped me really narrow down my niche.
Thanks. So tell me a little bit about coaching outside of that established demographic, because you shared a few stories when we were first connecting about how your niche is your niche. However, there might be opportunities outside of that.
Yeah, so I mean, my marketing, and this is great if you're interested in starting a coaching business, just to know the side of things. So, and iPEC will explain that to you as well, like once you start the process. But for my marketing purposes, I market toward women. I have male clients though, and I have men reach out to me. So even within that, like I get really specific for my marketing because that's what generates your business. That's what brings it in. So it's having the coaching hat, but it's also having the business side of things as well. And so in addition to that, I've also wrote a book. I speak, I do book signings. I speak all over the nation. I'm headed to Toronto to speak, so I'll go international in September. Yeah. And so, doing all of that, I learned how to run my business and how to write a book. And so people have been reaching out for coaching around book writing. And I've been able to offer that. In addition to different talks that I do, I don't just do talks on dating and relationships. I can do talks on self-care, on burnout. And so I'm doing a talk in a couple of weeks at an MBA program, and I'm going to go do a talk around burnout and around self-care. And at the end of the day, iPEC has provided me with the tools that I need to coach anything, but I've specifically chosen a niche. And so it falls into the realm of marketing. That works as well for a business side of things, but also specifically what I'm interested in. But I'm not limited just because my niche is dating and relationships. I spoke at the Milwaukee Bucks Women's Conference, and that was all around friendships and all around like really connecting with self. And so it's not always just intimate relationships dating. I can expand much beyond that.
Awesome. Yeah. The world is your oyster.
It is. Yes.
So tell me a little bit about, you mentioned that your first paying client came from your mod. So tell me a little bit about your experience of coaches meeting coaches.
So every coach that I've ever hired has been an iPEC graduate. So my first coach was an iPEC graduate, and my current coach is an iPEC graduate. And I think it's really important to know that if you are going into coaching, this is just how I feel. This is my opinion. All right. Take what you like, leave the rest. That's what I always say. But my opinion is that it's important to hire a coach, because you get to see different styles. You get to see somebody else helping you really grow your business. If that's the direction that you want, it gives you guidance. I look at my coach now as very much a mentor. And so I go to him, I'm like, this is what I'm strategizing. This is where I'm going. What do you think about this? And he's like, create this, awesome. And, we work toward certain goals for my salary, because you're self-paid, salary goals toward writing my book, speaking engagements, book signings. It's just been really helpful to have a coach help coach a coach.
Excellent. And tell me, we talk a lot about blocks when you're a coach. There's the fear of like, signing up for the program, or, breaking up with somebody. There's always those blocks that, what are you tolerating that, may no longer be serving you? Yeah. Can you talk to me a little bit about your perception of blocks and how you work through those for yourself?
It's been a progression. And I actually always say that, at different stages in your life, you're going to have different blocks come up. Or maybe they're blocks you already thought you've worked through that just come up, and you get to grow and dig a little deeper within and discover, a new perspective of the block. So one of my main blocks actually was starting my business was money. Oh, it was so big. I was so afraid nobody would hire me. I'm never going to be able to do this full time. I mean, all of those thoughts ran through my head. And now that I'm doing it, and I'll be completely honest with you, a new block for me is, will I be able to get to this new next jump financially that I've been trying to get to? So it's funny because your life is always growing and you're always growing. And especially if you own your own business, I mean, you're just going to hit different stages where 2 years ago, the block that I'm having right now was nowhere near the block that I had then. Like, it was so irrelevant. So it's kind of just one of those things that it's important to do reflection, especially as a coach. It's important to do your own work, because you need to know what your clients are going to go through. You need to know how to help them through that, because you've also experienced what that's like as well.
I can't say anything more to that. That's just exactly the way I see it too, is the fact that we all, the awareness and that continuing prodding as far as, well, why does this feel off, and being able to just really start to dive into that, and having those tools to be able to have the awareness and what to do about it. And then having resources like having coaches and things like that to support you is also one of those, it's a really cool space to be in.
Yes.
So on the other side of things, I'm sure you get asked a lot of questions about your personal love life. So what's your status?
So I always say with this question, before I even answer it, it really doesn't matter what my status is. And the reason being is that I think as a society, we put so much emphasis on your worth depending on your relationship status. That I have a lot of times clients come into me who are dating and who are like, I just don't feel worthy. Well, why? Because I can't find someone. And so the idea is that you should be able to fill up your own cup. You should be able to love yourself. Now, I'll answer your question. I am in a relationship, and it looks much different than the relationships I've ever been in the past. And, before going through my self-love, self-growth journey. But the idea is that no matter your relationship, you've got to be happy with yourself, which is why I always stress the most important relationship that you will ever have is with you. And when you really step into that space, you don't let other things really define your worth, or whether you're at a certain place in life or you're better than somebody else. I mean, all of those things. And even if you're just listening to this, I give this as a coach, I just have to say this, give yourself a moment to reflect about, were you excited to hear about my relationship status? Were you wondering, oh, okay, did she get it down because that means X, Y, and Z? I mean, think about your own thoughts around that and like what comes up for you. I'm sorry, I just had to add that part in.
I love it.
Coach, it's a learning opportunity.
Yeah, absolutely. Curiosity is key. Curiosity is key in a lot of instances. We make a lot of assumptions about ourselves and how we see the world. But if you could question almost everything, not just the hard stuff, but the stuff that seems to come easily. Why is this easy? And how could you then, turn that into something else for you going forward? So curiosity is one of my favorite words. And,
yes.
I love that you brought that up.
Yeah.
So tell me a little bit about what inspired you to write your book, and a little bit more about the book itself.
Well, I always say, like, literally since I was a little girl, like in 7th grade, I always journaled. And in the journal, I said, maybe I'm going through all of these experiences in life because it'll be a book one day. And I've always struggled with relationships. And I really hit hard on this in my first chapter of my book, because I lay it out like, this is why, I'm going into, this codependent lifestyle of growing up with domestic violence and then not feeling worthy and picking these partners over and over again that are toxic for me since a very young age. And so it wasn't until I went through my journey that I reflected back and thought, wow, okay, so everything in life does serve a purpose. There is a reason behind everything, and that's what I believe. And whatever reason I'm supposed to be writing this book, I've always felt like the book was inside of me, and it just was timing of getting it out on paper and really doing it. And the other thing as well is that I think people hear dating and relationship coach and they think, oh, dating apps, you help people do that, do you match make, those types of things. And I think what's important to understand, and Ipek is very much about going below the surface. It's really the core of coaching, that I help people with dating and, apps, and relationships are, just like communication stuff. But I always say that's the surface level stuff. And what's important is getting to the core of it. And I felt like I was able to express myself through the book, because not only is it my own personal story, but it's client stories that are intertwined along with action steps around breaking free of codependency, creating healthy relationships, communication, boundaries, red flags, self-love, all of that. I was able to really go in depth. And I feel like the book was my outlet for that.
Excellent. Are you working on another book?
Not at the moment. I'm still doing book signings and talks. So
and when did the book come out?
It came out in October.
Excellent. Excellent. Yeah. Remind us what the title is called.
It's called Contagious Love, Break Free from Codependency for Damn Good.
Awesome. Awesome. So tell me a little bit about all these fabulous workshops and how you got involved in that and what that does for your business.
I've always wanted to just get in front of people and share my message around self-love in relationships, in dating, in breakups, in marriages, whatever your relationship status is. And so for me, I love talking to people. I am a people person, and I will disclaimer right now, if you're a people person, it can get difficult working for yourself, because I work from home, and if I don't have like a full day of clients or anything, it's not a lot of talking. It's pretty quiet. For somebody who's extrovert, I love getting up in front of people. So I thought, what a great way when I was living in Los Angeles that I can just start these workshops. And so I collaborated with other coaches as well and put them on together. And that, I think, is key when you're going into this business, because at the end of the day, it's all about collaborating. Just like I shared earlier about using, my friends from the modules at different aspects of, my career, personal life, whatever, you've got to, support other coaches and have other coaches support you. And that's what I personally think is successful. So for me, I've put on workshops, I've gotten sponsors, paid sponsors. I mean, I've done like big ones, little ones, private ones. It just really just depends on what the client needs and like what my vision is for it. And then even once I moved to New York, I've put on more workshops as well for that. And it just fuels me. And I always get a client out of a workshop. So it's always really great for marketing purposes. And yeah, I love doing it.
Excellent. Excellent. One more big question, and then we'll kind of move into some Q&As, because we are getting a few questions coming in, which is wonderful. So again, as a reminder, if you have questions for Carla or about the program or anything like that, feel free to drop it in the Q&A on Zoom or on the Facebook comments, and we'll get to those in a few minutes. So one of the things that you and I kind of talked about was, what kind of tip or what value could you just leave us with? And then I've got a few other things to talk about, and then we'll get into the Q&A. So what magical thing can you share with us?
Well, I think ultimately, like, if we're talking in regards to self-love, like, working on the relationship within is so, so important, because when you really start to do the work, you build the foundation for yourself. And I talk about this in my book, Contagious Love, where it's like, you're like this seed, right? And whatever you're watering it with, so say it's an affirmation, and you're probably thinking of the affirmations, I am enough, I am good, I am worthy. And if you water it with that, you build a foundation, okay? You don't get pulled out, uprooted real easy. But when you start to water it with negative, or as I call BS affirmations, then, I'm not enough, I'm not worthy. Then when a storm comes, you just go right up. You don't have that foundation. And so I think about life as a journey, and it's always about creating a foundation with yourself. What you tell yourself is so powerful. And I think that really is the core of a lot of our issues and a lot of our problems. And if you can get down to the core and you're able to build that foundation, then you can live a very successful life, whether it's in intimate relationships, dating, breakups, or your marriage.
Excellent. Excellent. Good stuff. Good stuff. So we are going to drop in how to get in touch with Carla. So that way that will be dropped in there. And we've got a couple of other things I wanted to mention for housekeeping, and then we'll switch to Q&A. So coming up on February 26th, that will be the next live Q&A session with an iPEC admissions coach. So if you want to join us there, feel free to do that. You could always send us a session request so you can have a one-on-one session with an admissions coach. So those links will be dropped in there. Also, one really exciting thing, we only do this on a quarterly basis, but we will be having an interview with Don Whittle. He is the membership director at the ICF. So again, the ICF is the International Coaching Federation. It is the accreditation body. They're the ones that take care of the entire industry. And that's where we get our certifications from. And so it's really exciting to be able to have him join us and get all your questions answered about certifications and hours and the curriculum and those kinds of things. So please join us on March 4th. Those are available to register. Both the Q&A and the ICF webinar are able to be registered on the iPEC coaching website under events. So feel free to sign up there. We'll also drop that link there. And then you will get an email after the session with the recorded version, so you can listen to it again. And let's just shift gears and go into some Q&A, all right?
Sounds good.
Let's see here. So Karen on Facebook says, my business is taking forever to get moving. How do you keep going when you're feeling defeated?
Hire a coach is one. That's what I did, and it completely flipped my business. And also just know that that's part of entrepreneurship. Like, you're an entrepreneur. So there's an amazing meme, and it might really sum up your life right now, is that it's a graph, and it's like a day in the life of an entrepreneur. And it's like, this is amazing. It's like, oh my gosh, what have I gotten myself into? Oh, it's okay. Oh my gosh, I've completely messed up. And then it goes back up, and it's like, you know what, today was okay. And so that is just the pattern of owning your own business and being an entrepreneur. But don't be afraid to ask for help, and don't be afraid to network with other coaches.
Excellent. Thank you. Paula is asking about what IPEC's philosophy is overall. So I guess that's a question for me to answer. The mission at iPEC is to change the lives of, the mission is to change the world one person at a time through coaching. So we're trying to raise the consciousness of the world one person at a time. And we utilize coaching as the modality for that. And then Paula, you also asked what type of support and resources does iPEC offer or provide to someone wanting to create an independent business? So I'm going to turn that over to Carla so she can talk a little bit about her experiences there.
So there's an area of one of the modules, I honestly forget at this point, it's been a while, but where you go over marketing and things to set up your business online as well in the portal. There is a space that you can look into. It kind of tells you how to set up emails, how to set up your business, and it just kind of goes over templates and things like that. So you have that support from iPEC already, because ultimately, if you're doing this, a lot of people, and not everyone, I mean, I've had friends that they just wanted to be certified, didn't want to go and start their own business. But for those that do, they do support you with that. And you can always talk to your mod leader or whoever, even your mentor coach, if you've got a question about coaching aspects of things, you have that support in that foundation.
And I would like to add to that, that there is a program while you're going through that you can opt in, and that is the Success Coach. And basically the Success Coach is like having a coach to help you start to visualize and envision what those next steps are to be able to do that. In addition, we also have a marketplace where we've got a lot of resources, and included in that is a quick start program. And that is a program that allows you to help start your business as well. So it's weekly webinars and other business sales and marketing type resources. So you definitely are not alone. This is something that we've been doing for 20 years, and we've built quite a bit of support for you. And like Carla said, you're not alone. If you've got questions, you can throw it out to the folks that you are you're in your cohort, or you're able to ask them, on the larger iPEC community group once you've enrolled. All right, I've got a question here from, I'm going to try my best to say your name correctly, Niranjan. And you said you want to ask one thing from heart. I feel a strong feeling for one last year at iPEC, for being a life coach and being, oh, things bounced. Where'd it go? I think I just lost it. Oh, there it is. For being a life coach, I'm a spiritual mentor and learning metaphysical psychology. That's what the word was. And I've made it my thing, and I'll master within these domains. But you wish to get a certificate or a coaching on the same. Specifically to that, everyone here, we all have different backgrounds. And that's one of the beautiful things about coaching is coaching really is just this added layer to be able to make you successful and ask questions knowing that you have this background. So like Carla explained that she had, a specific background, and then she had this personal experience that was able to help her identify her niche. You absolutely can use the master's education that you've received and be able to utilize that to be able to help either develop your niche or to be able to help you with where you're working. A lot of people take coaching, these skills, and they bring them to their professional setting. So coaching isn't just limited to somebody becoming an entrepreneur. You can absolutely utilize this in so many different ways, personally, professionally, and even in your own business. I hope that answered your question. So if it didn't, please just chat that again, and we'll be happy to clarify. Let's see here. Paula asks, what are all the ways that people coach, and do iPEC grads also work for outside organizations? So great timing on that question. Yeah, absolutely. So Carla, tell me a little bit about some of the coaches that you've worked with, and maybe their niches and how a little bit about their stories if you know them.
Yeah, I have got a friend, and she does coaching around career. So she just does career coaching, and that's her niche. I also have a friend who does only health coaching, and it's not necessarily like she's not a nutritionist, that type of thing, but she really comes from a holistic approach. So there's so many different niches. I mean, there's, you know, the love side of things. I also know a spiritual coach who works around spirituality. You know, there's just so many different things as well that you can kind of tap into. And when you talk about working for different organizations as well, I'm an independent contractor as a coach for a matchmaking company. So there's just so many things and avenues that you can do, and really expand and get creative.
Excellent. Thank you. Yeah, and like I mentioned, there are people that they take in fact, actually, that's kind of my personal experience. I mean, I work for iPEC, and my intention is not necessarily to become a coach. I very much enjoy coaching, and I might dabble a little bit, but I don't plan on doing what Carla's doing and creating a whole business. I love being the director of marketing at iPEC. So I leverage coaching skills with, you know, my family and friends, and as well as my colleagues. And it's been a real eye-opening experience, and it's really helped me to show up differently because I'm so much more self-aware. In addition to, when times get tough, it's easier to ask some of these clarifying questions to be able to get to the root cause versus staying in that confusion and that misalignment space. You know, I found that this has been really helpful for me. And, but, you know, really coaching is one of those really interesting modalities. It can be your own business, or you can apply it to your current career. And that's what's, I think, really kind of cool about this. It's so versatile. So Carla, tell us a little bit about, I've got this question here about, where did it go? About, what do you think about age and, you know, how old you are and life experience and how you're able to be a coach at such a young age?
So I love that question because I was asked, I got on a, like, you know, a call, I do video calls, and somebody said, oh, you know, she was in her 40s, and she said, oh, you're really young. How do you know how to coach? And I said, well, actually, I coach, I have a certification. So I've learned to coach anything really. So whatever you're coming to me with, I can coach around. It's not my own experiences projected onto your experience. And I think it's important that, you know, I have my own experience and I've done the work myself, but ultimately you're not coaching because you are wisdom and you know what's right for the person. That's actually the opposite of coaching. What you're really doing is you're learning the coaching tools and how it's set up and all of those things when you go through iPEC, so that you can literally, anybody can literally come to me and say, I'm going through X, Y, and Z. And I can say, okay, great. Let's go. Let's, you know, I can start to ask them questions and really get them shifting and, you know, from one energy level to another. So it's really just about the coaching process that you're an expert in. Like, you are an expert in being a coach. You are not an expert in whatever their situation in personal life is happening.
Yeah. And I think that's a really, really great point to be making, that, you know, as a coach, you don't necessarily want to get in the box with them, because it helps you see the forest for the trees, because that's why they're coming to you. They can at that point. So that's a really, really important point, that you don't necessarily have to have the exact same life experiences as your clients to be able to really help them shift and see, you know, more clearly about their situation. So one of the other questions that just popped in was, what has been the hardest part of starting your own business?
The mental aspect. I'll be 100% honest with you. It's the mental aspect. It's really, I mean, look, your business is either going to work or it's not. That's it. Like, that's honestly the truth of businesses and starting your own business. But here's the thing, is that I truly believe that if you do not give up, and that comes from a mental place, if you do not give up and you keep going and you keep going, even when you feel like that dip, like that graph I told you about, that entrepreneur dip, and you just keep showing up for yourself, you just keep putting one foot in front of the other and keep going, you will be fine. And I truly mean it. Like, don't worry about creating a timeline for yourself, whatever, because you can't really control that space. You can't really control time. Just focus on what you need to do right there and then. Make a couple long, you know, intermediate, long-term, and then some long-term goals, but really stay present on your day-to-day, because that is what's going to make or break it.
Thank you. That helps, I think, clarify for some people. I mean, owning your own business, no one ever said it's going to be easy, but if you're passionate about it, I think that, the fruits of your labor will come. So with that, does life coaching pay well? I mean, can you make a decent income by doing this?
I had the same question when I was coming in. Can you actually do this? Yeah, because you set your own pricing. And iPEC will talk to you about that, about how to set pricing and those types of things. And it was something, like I said, in the beginning, the money stuff was really uncomfortable for me. Oh gosh, like, asking somebody to, pay me to help, that kind of thing. I felt scared. I was like, oh, that was a block for me. I could go in and negotiate my rate when I was in television, like no problem. But whatever reason, when I started my business and I had to, tell somebody how much my packages were for coaching, I was like, but now it doesn't even faze me. I don't even think about it. But yeah, 100%, you set the price. So you make what you want to make, you make what you need to make, you figure out financially, what is it that you need to do to survive, to live, and what that looks like for you. And everybody prices out differently. My prices are about average to other coaches in my area, in my niche. But I don't go out and say, okay, because they're pricing it this way, I have to do it this way. I actually chose the price that works for me. And then I looked around and was like, oh, other people are pricing around the same as well.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, thank you for sharing that, because, like you mentioned earlier, money blocks are a really common thing. I mean, we all get scared about money and not having enough of it, because that's how our society works. So not being able to earn enough, or not having enough to be able to maybe invest in this program. There are a lot of opportunities here. If you think about it as I can't do it, then you can't do it. But if you think maybe how I could be curious about affording the program, or how I should price my packages and things like that, really it's an opportunity to either be coached on by some of your peer coaches when you're in the program and developing these things, or when you talk to an admissions coach. Admissions coaches can help you with some of that clarity too.
Yes.
And let's see here. So, Niranjan, you asked just another question for Carla. She said, as you asked it, it's not surface level stuff. The best thing is to be complete yourself and be independent. Then only the bond will be great. And how much it does. Personal boundaries and healthy boundaries important in a relationship. It's easily to get immersed in involved when things get toxic. So she was just reiterating your point of.
Well, we got the same. Yeah, we're exactly on the same page with that. We are aligned. Yes.
Absolutely. Yeah, absolutely. And Paula's asking, where is your global reach programs in other countries? I think she's specifically talking about iPEC specifically. Yes, we are a global company. If you go to ipeccoaching.com, up in the top right-hand corner, we have schedule and locations. And so you can check out where the closest location would be to you. And I encourage everyone to check out because classes are starting soon right now. And I think the first classes for this cycle start in March. So we're only a couple of weeks away from a new batch of people experiencing the fun and the excitement and the really deep, exciting, transformational work that coaching program can do. Let's see here. Any other questions? I think I've got one or two more here. So if you've got any last minute questions, please, again, pop them into the Q&A or into the Facebook comments. Let's see here. How many clients do you have at any given time, Carla?
That's a great question. It fluctuates. And I think that's important to know too about coaching is sometimes I'll have 10 clients at a time. And then sometimes in certain months, like the holidays and things like that, people tend not to be as eager to get coaching. They want it, after the holidays, that kind of thing. So it really just fluctuates. I think ultimately, and this is the other thing too, like you should have limits, you should have boundaries around how many clients you do have. So there's times where it's like, and I'm going to speak for other coaches that I'm friends with as well, because everybody is different. I've had a friend who literally had 21 clients and was absolutely exhausted, was so burned out. She was like, I'm never doing that to myself again. So then she brought it down to 12 and was much happier. So it really just depends. What can what can you put up with? I mean, that ultimately, like, what do you have available in your schedule? Do you want to always be called back to back, back to back? Or do you rather have a higher paying client? Okay, this is where you get into the business side of things. You have higher paying packages, a higher paying client, then you can have less clients. So I'm just going to throw it out there. It really just depends on what you feel comfortable with. And it also depends on, like, sometimes just the ebb and flow of having clients. Sometimes I'm like, oh, hey, like, I've dropped down a couple of clients. Sure enough, eventually it'll all like come back up and it'll flow again. So that's just the process of coaching and how it works.
Everything's cyclical, seasonal, things ebb and flow, and hey, it gives you a little bit of a break sometimes too, to be able to reevaluate your business and things of that nature too. So it looks like we have another question about when someone is looking for a coach, where do they usually go to find one? Yellow pages don't really exist anymore.
So I've had a lot of people find me on Google, but I will be honest, referrals and my talks is how I get clients. My book has been a great funnel for clients. So it really just depends what works for you. I have some friends who are iPEC certified who do funnels on, like, the click funnels online, and that's how they market their packages and their programs, and it's an online program kind of thing. I mean, literally, like, the world is your oyster on finding clients and the way they can find you. And if you're looking for a client or for a coach, you could do a Google search, or you can get on the iPEC page and say, hey, I'm looking for a coach in this area. I mean, that's a great resource. So really, I mean, there's just so many avenues and so many different ways to look into it. But, really figure out, what is it you want? What is important? Is it important that your coach is certified, or do you just rather have more of a mentor, somebody who's not certified? That kind of thing is important to look at as well.
Thank you. And just as another note, we do have on the iPEC coaching website, I believe it's under resources, we do have a coaching directory where people can be where our coaches are listed. So they're listed by location and by the types of niche that they're focused on. So you can definitely tag, and reach out to some of the iPEC coaches that way too. But the Facebook page, or you go to our website and there's a directory there as well. But absolutely, there's a lot of really good resources, and I see it all the time on the iPEC coach community, which is a community specifically for the people who have been through the program. You'll see, hey, I've got a client who needs this, and so people are referring clients all the time to each other. It's a really great opportunity to be able to leverage each other, because you can say, hey, I do burnout, or I do love, relationship coaching. There are a lot of ways to be able to interact with the community as well. And I can't say enough about the community. I feel like, for me, I've worked in a lot of corporations, and you don't see, the energy and the camaraderie amongst a bunch of people who have never met. I'm currently reading a book called Fanocracy, and it's fascinating because it's a marketing book, but it's talking about, like, how Boston Red Sox fans are just adamant fans. Everyone's got their fandoms. I mean, Comic Cons, sewing circles, whatever the thing is that excites you. There's always a group of people that are just they want to come together and talk about this. And coaching is just exactly the same way. We love to talk about it. We love to be able to share ideas, business ideas, as well as, ideas about how to help a client. Because sometimes, clients come to us with some really deep stuff. And there's some really cool tools and techniques and resources out there. So I just want to shout out to the community. Yay, community. Thank you. Keep it up. Keep up the good work and in supporting each other, because it really does make a big difference, especially if you're trying to go down that entrepreneurial track. Let's see here. I think that was the last question. So as a reminder, there are some links here in the chat the directory. We've got the directory listed there. We've got the locations listed there. We've got Carla's link to her website, to about her book, her Instagram page, as well as a link to the sessions that are coming up on March 4th and what was the date on that one? February 26th. February 26th is the Q&A, as well as March 4th is the ICF. And again, if you have any questions at all, please email us at admissions@ipeccoaching.com. Again, thank you so much, Carla. It's been a pleasure. It was so wonderful hearing more about your story, and just really appreciate it. And keep up the good work. And I can't wait to dig into your book, because I got to read it now. I got to read it.
All right. Yes. Thank you.
Awesome. Thank you so much, everybody, for joining live. Again, admissions@ipeccoaching.com. If you have any questions, and if you'll get an email if you registered for this event, we'll send you the recorded session soon. All right. Have a wonderful rest of your week, everybody. Take care.